G'day humans, Chris Stead from Foonie here. We're talking NFT games and today the topic is Apeiron. Now, like most of the games that I cover on this channel, this one's caught my eye because of the quality of its early gameplay footage. It's looking like it's going to be a lot of fun. It starts off as kind of a god game, but its grand vision goes well beyond that one singular genre. So let's dive in and take a look at Apeiron. Now, as my regular viewers will know, I love a developer that is forward facing. We have one here in the form of Hong Kong based and radically named Foonie Magus. Now these guys seem to be a sister studio to Aether Entertainment, who is a mobile developer best known for the strategy series Acid Rain. Now Foonie itself and Aether even don't have a hell of a lot of runs on the board, but the CTO does. He kind of launched, successfully deployed over 100 games over his couple of decades of experience in the industry. And the developer itself has definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. All over the site you'll see they're really bought into the idea on future of the metaverse and what play-to-earn gaming can bring to people all over the world. So a bit of a tick there when it comes to the developer. So what kind of game is Apeiron? Look, that's quite complicated actually. It takes quite a bit to dive into what this game's really about. So when the experience starts, it feels like a classic god game. Think Populus, think Spore, think Black and White, think Peter Molyneux really. And you get an idea of that kind of the initial gameplay experience. So you kind of play this god who's assigned a planet, and your role is to come in and basically change and impact the world of the sentients on this planet, which are called dudes. Now these dudes are pretty funny, crazy looking characters that remind you a lot of minions. Now, the way that you interact with this world is the minions will have prayers and requests and things that they would do, and you will come in and enact whatever you feel like doing to either help or hinder the way that these dudes are reacting. So you can be good or you can be evil, that's up to you. So when I say the elements, I'm talking things like rain and fire, wind, things like that. So you can bring in rain and make the crops all plentiful, or you can bring in fire and set them all on fire. It's kind of up to you, right? But ultimately, your idea, the hope is that you're going to grow out the number of dudes in the civilization to a certain extent where you're revered enough, there's enough people that follow you and love you, that you manifest in the world as an avatar, as an actual character that's like a being in this world, right? Now the way and the look and the shape and the feel of who you are will be based on how you treated the dudes. Were you super good? Were you super evil? Were you somewhere in between? So that kind of, I guess, morality bar that we've seen in a number of God games, especially the Molyneux games over the years, is a really interesting factor or feature of this game. And I can't wait to see how it actually impacts the way not only that the dudes react to you, but also just how it changes the look and feel of you and the shape of your planet, which is kind of procedurally generated as it kind of builds out. So that's kind of the initial start to the game, is that you want to interact as this kind of hand that comes in and does things in the world until you've reached up your power enough that you become an actual character. But at that point, the game changes quite significantly. So once you've manifested on your planet as an avatar, you can enter into the planet's dungeon. Okay, and this is where the game becomes like a dungeon crawler or like a roguelike, right? So you go into these dungeons and you fight against these corrupted dudes that are in the dungeon, and your idea is to try and get deep enough to rescue apostle dudes who are like more powerful versions of your dudes that will join your squad and fight with you as you go deeper into the dungeon. So completely different experience, right? Now this ties into the metagame where there's this idea of chaos and cosmos fighting each other across the entire universe, and there's this thing called, I think it's the taint of chaos, which is kind of coming in and corrupting everything, and by going into these dungeons and fighting back and getting these corrupted dudes and getting rid of them and rescuing these apostle dudes, you're fighting back against the taint of chaos and clearing the universe. So that ties into the metagame, but the gameplay changes a lot here. So I really like the way they're approaching the combat in this part of the game. It's very, very interesting. So you control your avatar directly, so you can move around and do your attacks and so forth, but the apostle dudes who are part of your squad that you've rescued, who are fighting with you, they kind of AI controlled, so they're just kind of doing their best. However, you have skill cards that you can play that then allow the apostle dudes to have certain abilities, so you can kind of order them to do certain things in battle effectively. And each time you play a skill card, another one is randomly drawn and made available. So it's this kind of real-time general management experience while you're also involved in combat at the same time as well. So very, very intriguing, and it looks like a stack of fun actually. It looks like a really fun way to play a dungeon. Now, on top of that, each time you kind of clear a dungeon and get to the end and rescue it, on your next run through, rescue the apostle dude at the end, on your next run through, you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the dungeon. So there's that loop there as well, where you're kind of like progressing, getting another apostle dude that helps build out your squad, makes your squad stronger, and then you can get deeper, and you can get deeper again, and get deeper again, right? So that's the idea here. So it's a world away from the God game experience you're playing moments before, but yeah, really cool. However, here's the thing, that's just the loop within the loop. So at a certain point, your god's going to reach your god, or you, the god, are going to reach kind of the maximum that you can get through your planet. So you're going to go through the dungeons as much as you possibly can, and you got to the deepest possible end of the dungeon. So what do? Next? You nuke the planet. Seriously, you nuke the planet. And it resets the planet altogether. So you get a whole new randomly generated experience. You're gonna have to start from scratch, like getting those dudes to love you again so you can manifest in the world. But when you go to the dungeon, you'll find out the dungeon's a lot deeper this time. There's more to earn when you go into the dungeon after you've nuked it. Now the idea of kind of nuking this world that you've built is pretty heavy, right? But it does serve more than just a purpose of making the dungeons more in depth and deeper on the second playthrough and third playthrough and fourth playthrough. You also level up your god. So that's how you level up your god. So that's kind of like a game on top of the game. So you're leveling up your god by nuking it and getting more and more resources and being able to do more and more things. Now, in your world, right? Now the thing is, that's also going to ultimately cap out. So eventually you're going to not be able to just get any more resources from this planet, even though you've gone through a couple of loops on it. And at that point, that's when you're going to have to start looking at getting another planet altogether and building out your own, effectively, your own star system, then solar system, then galaxy, depending on how far you go or how big a clan or group of human beings you decide to start playing with is. So very intriguing idea there to just blow the whole thing up. Now the good news, and another reason why I like Apeiron, is that you can play this game for free. So when you subscribe to the game, you're given a seed planet. Now the seed planet is not an NFT. However, you can go through the entire process. You can go through the full God game experience, and you can summon your avatar, and once your avatar is summoned, go into the dungeon crawling and fight your way through to try and earn apostle dudes. Now even when you're starting with a seed planet, you will, that avatar that you call down, or you manifest as, and the apostle dudes that you rescue are proper NFTs. So you can go from zero and build your way up to a place where you do have NFTs and skin in the game. However, at a certain point, after a couple of Armageddons, these seed planets are going to top out on resources, and you will need to then look at a way of getting yourself a actual NFT planet to continue playing. Now, on top of that, you can also buy a star. So that's kind of like the land, I guess, in this game. So any given star has a number of orbits around it, and you can have a look at my written article on the Fire.com website, where I do go into bigger detail about, you know, the rarities of all this and the number of orbital rings that you have. But the idea is you have a star, it's got orbit rings, and on those orbit rings people can have planets, and each star offers different buffs and abilities to the planets that orbit it. So that's something to consider and take into account, but you are paying a kind of a rental fee to be able to orbit that star. So that's the pros and cons of that. Now there are NFTs you can get in this game. There's planetary wonders, for example, which if you manage to build a really strong dude civilization, they may build a planetary wonder which will hold value as an NFT and make your place look rad. And on top of that, you can also get special items while you're doing the dungeon crawling. You can unearth special items that will give you buffs that are also an NFT. Now, one thing I should let you know is that when you do your Armageddon, it doesn't just blow up the planet, it blows up the NFTs that are on that planet, your planetary wonders, your special items that you've picked up while you've been dungeon crawling. So that is a bad thing. However, you can pay a fee, which I'll go into in a little bit, to turn those NFTs into a relic, which allows them to survive the Armageddon and be reused on your next playthrough. Now, this is a mechanic I don't like. on surface value anyway. It just feels like they're grabbing money off you. If you've earned it, you should be able to keep it. It shouldn't just, and the reality is you have to do it every time. So if you've got some really cool planetary wonder that you want to keep for every single version of your planet, every time you do an Armageddon, you've got to pay again to turn it into a relic. So not so cool about that, but we'll see how it plays out. At this point, you're probably thinking that Apeiron's quite a complicated game, and it really is. There's a lot to unpack here, and I definitely would suggest that you read my article so you can get a deeper analysis than I can provide here on video. But it does get deeper still. So there is breeding in this game. You can take 2 planets and breed them into a third in what's called a celestial conjunction. So there's that. You can also burn tokens in what's called a holy ritual to up the stats of your apostle dude so that they're better fighters. There's 3 different tokens in this game for you to get your mind around. There's the in-game token, there's a governance token, there's also a social token, which will play into the way that the PvP unfolds. They're also talking about big guild versus guild battles in the future as well. So the social token I don't think will come into play until a bit further down after launch, further down the roadmap. But still, there's a lot to understand there, and we still don't really know what all these things are going to cost. What's it going to cost to create a relic? What's it going to cost to pay rent around a star? How much are we going to have to invest in the idea of a celestial conjunction or the Armageddons and these types of things? So a lot to still understand about the tokenomics in this game, but on top of having multiple different genre experiences, really, when you're starting with talking about a god game that goes into a dungeon crawler that goes into like a galactic strategy title, to then lay on top of that such broad tokenomics, does put the game at risk of being a little hard to jump into, a little overcomplicated. Having said that, having read through all the white papers and looked at it all quite closely, you can see the vision here. You can see how one leads into the other. So I'm still quite excited about Apeiron. So as mentioned, I'm a big fan of what Foonie Magus is trying to do here. The early gameplay footage I've seen looks pretty polished. It's got a great sense of humor about it and a real colorful vibe, kind of think Fable, think Spore, that kind of, bright colors and really welcoming appeal to it. What they've thought out works really smartly, like the combat works well in the dungeon crawling from what I can see, and I can really see the vision of where this is going. I do wonder if they've just bit off more that they can chew here, right? Like as a developer in itself, I know the CTO and some of the other staff have developed a lot of previous games and deployed a lot of titles, but Aether Entertainment, the sister developer here, only has a couple of games in the Acid Rain franchise under its belt. Foonie has none itself. So, wow, have they bitten off more they can chew? I don't know, but definitely a game to be excited about, definitely a game to watch out for, and I'm definitely going to be looking at trying to get in on it as soon as I can get my hands on it. Okay, I'm Chris Stead from Fire. Thanks for watching and going through all of that with me. Apeiron, what a promising looking title it is. Make sure you check out the article and do check out my other videos. And until next time, happy gaming.